pull up to the club in my 1964 caddy, straight ready to stunt. At 1:45, just looking for fun. I said a twist for me, baby, hit a rip for me, baby. Take another shot, get lit for me, baby. Ooh-wee. It's 1:45. What you wanna do? Cocaine, country dancing with you.
Welcome to the 150th episode of Cowboy Sh. My name is Ted Stovin. He is Dustin Edwards. And we are coming to you live from the basement of 4620. My new office is in the basement. As you can see, the background has changed. Got my, what I got over there? The degree from New Mexico Junior College of Fine Learning. An old back number from the Calgary Stampede right behind Dustin's head over there.
The two things that have really set you up for success. Rodeo and fine education.
Fine education from New Mexico. Very good. Very good stuff. You know what else? Nothing much else has set me up. I just
done her.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about, that because it's the 150th show, and we've done a show every other Wednesday since December of 2017. So actually, the show has been one of the most consistent things in my life.
That's true. Which in your world, in your life, consistency can be difficult when you have the amount of shit going on that you do. So it's a pretty impressive feat, because I think in the podcast world, and we've seen this in Western sports, especially in rodeo, podcasts don't stand the test of time due to the fact that they're inconsistent, right?
There's not many. I think to have a successful show, and I don't even know if this show is that successful. I think to me, success is having a show every other week. So
yeah, because you probably don't feel like doing it some
Not
nights,
even
like tonight.
No, what time is it? It's like 10 o'clock on a. It's 10:01 p.m. Monday, August 21st, and I got to be at the airport in about 7 hours, and I still got to go to sleep. And I slept like shit last night.
And you rolled out of here early this morning.
Yeah, we left at 7 a.m. Went and set up in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
And then, so you're going down there.
Yep.
Sean's going down there, our editor. And then we got to go to Dallas. And then Matt was with me today, and he's going to go work the WPCA Chuck Wagons, the finals. The finals in at Century Downs. So a busy weekend in the rodeo world, and hoping that the fires get under control, and that things kind of calm down over BC way, so we can go rodeo there next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy run out there, because Dave Paulson goes to Langley.
Yeah,
I go to Merritt. You go to Armstrong.
Yep. Planning
We're hoping that everybody's safe out there. And
yeah, I know there's already been some rough go for some folks.
Yeah.
Not much a person can do on the control on the fire stuff. So we're sending our best to you over there if you've had a rough go. Just unfortunate times for some things, right? Like
yeah. It is what it is, unfortunately. But we're thanking everybody. And so going back 150 episodes, and you've probably been asked this numerous times, but now that you're through 150, what's been your favorite episode to do?
Actually, this is the first time I've been asked this question since we've done 150 shows now.
Okay.
But thanks. Most fun show. Well, there's a couple different answers here. Like probably the coolest interviews. We beat Joe Rogan to Coulter Wall.
Yeah,
that was really cool. Thanks to Brad for making that one happen. Larry the Cable Guy. I think we're still one of the only guys to have Larry on a podcast. That was unreal cool. But he's been on Flint's show obviously for the live show in Vegas, right? So he was there, and I went and met him this last year. I loved it. It was so cool. Ron McLean, having him on the show.
That was a great epi.
That was so neat. You know, it ended up being a 2-part thing. I wish we could have had more time with a guy like Larry. Would have been really neat. But man, enjoy all the chats with Corb on here a few different times, and it's kind of funny. Some of the ones that are are a bit of sleepers sometimes have some of the have some of the biggest downloads. Like our best one so far download wise has been JB Mooney to date. And I thought the show we did with JB was really unique compared to what people had talked to him about before. You know, we ended up talking about to him, and he talked about buying horses and stuff with cash. I
Yeah.
figured out he was a cash guy. It was like kind of like something kind of random to talk to him about, but it was really neat. Having Flint on, he's been really cool. Another couple that stand out are the mindsets of those elite champions. Talking to Kendall Pearson. She's like 20. Well, she was like 18 years old.
Yeah.
And won the national high school finals, but like has a different mindset.
Yeah.
Somebody else recently, I forget. Oh, Bo Cooper.
Yeah. Another
like
one.
just the mindsets of those people. Like so we've been watching Ted Lasso the last little while, and there's a whole clip about him, and he's playing darts with the billionaire ex-husband of the team owner, and he's playing darts, and he has this whole speech about being curious, and I think that I'm just like, I'm not trying to say I'm like the guy like Ted in the show, but my name is Ted,
So it does fit.
and I'm also curious, but I just think
You're a very curious Ted. Like
yeah.
he is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I enjoy talking to the folks every couple of weeks, and
But I think being curious is the key to a good podcast, because I see, like, oftentimes you can write out questions that anyone could ask people,
true.
and then it's what you do with the answer or where you go with their answer that's important. And I would say the growth that you've had since you started doing this, your curiosity level and human interest level and how you get things from people has evolved in a really good way,
Hopefully.
thus in turn making your interviews better.
Hopefully.
And
I still feel like I'm nervous and I can't get where I want to go sometimes.
but sometimes when you
I'm
don't
nervous
know where
to
you
ask
want to
the
go,
question.
sometimes you go places you didn't think you'd go on a podcast.
True.
And I've noticed that sometimes all of a sudden you get a nugget out of somebody
Oh yeah.
because you didn't mean to, if that makes sense.
Well, some of my strategy on the show, honestly, is that it's not about me. When I watch people on TV, like I watched Jimmy Fallon for quite a while, and I watched like some of those different interviewers, like a guy like Ron McClain or Scott Oakes really stands out on that side of things. And then who else would I say? I don't know who to talk about on the rodeo side. And I'm not trying to be rude on some of it, but one of the people that I think does it really well is Flint, and I don't think he gets a lot of credit for it. But for Flint, it's not about Flint; it's about the person. And for me, and what I've seen with a guy like Ron McClain and whoever else, like Ron is extremely curious, and it's not about him. He's made a living out of being the most curious guy in the room, and he knows the stuff. But it's not about Ron. It's not like he's like, yeah, I used to play hockey and I used to do this and I used to, and then tell me about your experience. It's not like it has nothing to fucking do with Ron. It has everything to do with the person that we're talking to, and I'm the extractor of the story. I'm not the like, oh, come look at me, I'm a fucking good interviewer.
But
I don't give a shit. I just want to know about them, and I might make a impact based on being the guy that interviews all these people and gets the story out of them. But I don't see myself as this fancy fucking personality of some sort. Like I'm just trying to get the story, and I'm just showing up every time and asking the questions.
And that's how you got to be. And you said that you didn't know a lot of examples in rodeo. I think sometimes in rodeo we're kind of bad for that. Like I'll see people do an interview with somebody just did something great, and it's like, I remember that time we were at the rodeo 5 years ago and you were 3.2, and remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they want to make themselves part of this story. Like,
yeah.
And it's I don't know if it's egotistical or
I don't know
what the word is, but good interviewers,
it's not about them.
It's not about them.
No, not even a little bit.
I think like someone like Dave's really good at, like,
I was gonna say that
Paulson, he
Paulson,
would be the
100%.
example of someone who can turn a moment or something and pull something cool from that and get a good story out of it.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's not easy to do that, but sometimes you got to get out of your own way.
100%. Because I think some people that have, might have trouble with interviews, and like I've never really ever talked about this probably publicly, but like some people are too in their own head to properly do an interview because they try to think about, they might think they have to do that. Or one thing that irks me in interviews is people that have to reply. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, cool. Like, I don't think a person has to acknowledge the answer. I'm acknowledging your answer by asking you my next question based on what that answer was. Because I was listening to you.
And a really good interviewer does a really good job of that.
Well, I'm not
picking up
like
something from the answer to segue to the next thing.
Yeah. It's not like I have all this stuff in my head and I'm like, okay, I got to do this, and this, and I got to ask that. And I'm like, no, fucking listen to the person and do my best to do a little bit of homework beforehand, so I don't have to ask him a question that I could have figured out if I would have fucking done some homework.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And,
Anyways,
and in
bit
the
of a tangent.
podcast world, and you know what, like I haven't done a ton of podcasts with you, but you know, you've had points. I remember with Bo Cooper specifically, had all these notes and little points, and we had someone else.
I didn't have
too.
much though.
There was one, maybe it
Ross
wasn't Bo's.
Cooper had a lot. You knew Ross better than, or you knew Bo better than me. I didn't really know Bo, but I knew some of the stats and knew some of the info.
But
that's what I could find on him.
At the end of it, sometimes you go through an hour and a half and you're like, geez, you didn't have to use that because there was so many things that kept pulling the interview in the right direction.
So great.
Yeah.
A lot of the homework is like the basics to start the conversation and build the rapport to kind of get something going. And, you know, for a guy like Bo, I didn't know him at all. You had the instant connection because you guys have known each other for years. Like I don't think I've ever shook the kid's hand unless it was giving him a buckle at CFR that I kind of forgot about. Like I just don't remember now. But anyway, sorry.
No, I mean it's cool. You're at 150. It's cool to talk about the back end of it and what got you here. And I think you know, again, 150 episodes. I know the podcast world isn't like it's not a new thing anymore, but it is relatively new. Like that's a pretty big achievement. Like there's a lot that have come and gone, more that have come and gone that have made it to 150.
Fair.
Unless you're sitting in your parents' basement banging them out every couple days.
I don't know.
But
I haven't paid enough attention for everybody else doing. I'm just showing up and doing this. And yeah, here we are, 150 in. So we had a pretty fun show this week. Dustin, I'm sorry we ended up having two other announcers on the show. So
yeah, had to partake.
You had to jump on another
thing. So, but I'm excited to you know, get through this and have a listen on their opinions because it's such an interesting topic, which is who is the greatest bull rider of all time.
And it's something that I don't think. Well, listen to the show and I'll talk with you again after. But
yeah,
I have a tough time defining this.
It's very subjective at times to decide who's the greatest at what when it's different associations, different eras,
different bulls.
It's like talking to old timers who watched hockey and they're like, Bobby Orr is the greatest player ever.
Oh yeah.
You've never seen him play, but
he's the great. Just take my word for it.
Take my word for it. He was the best.
He was so good.
He was so good. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
We get passionate about what we're part of. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And
some of it's recency bias. Like a lot of folks would say JB Mooney's the greatest bull rider of all time. A lot of folks would think it was Lane Frost because he is the person that's most well known.
Yeah.
But he's not the best bull rider ever.
But I remember when I was a kid, like not knowing what like stats meant.
That was him.
Because the movie was like, oh, Lane Frost is the greatest bull rider ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Whenever you nodded when you were on the buck and bull or the buck and barrel, you were Lane Frost.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think that bull riding has seen like a huge shift in the last couple of years with like the athleticism.
Well, in
the business, the bulls.
Yeah, the last 25 years, honestly. But anyways, we talk about it lots in the show.
It's a cool subject.
Thanks for tuning in this week.
And then we challenge everyone after to tell us their list. Love to hear it.
But Dustin, we got a couple shows. You're going to, like you said, you're going to Lethbridge this weekend. We're going to go to Dallas in the morning. We're releasing a new line that you'll see, cowboyshit.ca. We'll have all those items for the public in probably the next month or so.
They're awesome. There's some really cool stuff.
They're already hitting some stores. We just dropped off a set of stuff at Western Stockman in Lethbridge. They've already got the new stuff. Lacey's been with us since day one, so I always make sure to give her a shout early on and get her some new stuff. So yeah, delivered it today. But going to Dallas in the morning to do that and have a fun time in Lethbridge.
Yeah, it's gonna be good, man.
Easy on my speakers down there.
We will be. We got Dave and Sean Morton and Keno. We got the crew down there. It's gonna be a good one.
Enjoy. All right. Well, we are back with the 150th episode. Thanks for everybody for listening, joining in. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks for sticking around. We'll enjoy the bulk of 150. welcome to the main feature of the 150th episode of Cowboy Shit. Once again, we are joined here by, I didn't know how to make this intro because he's been on the show numerous times, but many time guest, and I'm just going to say first ballot Hall of Famer for any Hall of Fame in the Western sports world, Mr. Flint Rasmussen, and new to the show for the first time, but I'm excited about it and glad to have him here. 17 times he's worked the PBR World Finals and also now the new team series with the professional bull riders as well. Welcome to the show, Mr. Clint Adkins. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Dustin Edwards is on his way to the Saddle Dome, going to work this morning. So we're, it's a coffee podcast, but thanks everybody for getting there all together.
Yeah, I don't know what this is going to look like on the final version, but as we do this, I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch, like, hey, Clint, down there. And, hey, Ted. Yeah.
Hey, I'm jealous of your shirt.
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ted's got his cowboy shit, Cheyenne Frontier Days, and I got the world needs more cowboy shit. Yeah, no, I'm in this. Ted, come on, 150th episode.
That is
150th episode, right? You got to give a little shout out. Even though you're the host, but I still have the nicest set. I think that's awesome.
You do,
yeah.
It's an honor to have you on the show. We're still running out of the basement, but it's all right. But Clint, send me your address. I'll get you fixed up. Chris will be at the warehouse tomorrow. So you guys, before we get going here, you guys were just in Anaheim. PBR team series we're in the second half of the season, and now it's a team series. Just give us a little rundown on how that's gone so far. I saw you guys in Cheyenne, had a good visit. Saw the team series events for the first time with my own eyes. I think it's a neat concept. I think it could change a lot of things. I don't know how. I hope it's going well, in at the events. But how's it going for you guys so far? How's it been?
Go ahead, Clint.
Ted, I have to tell you, I'm intrigued by, after going through the process from start to finish on this, there is some very serious legs to this, and there's a lot of different things to discuss when you're breaking this down from my perspective, but I think you hit something very important. This thing has potential to solve a lot of problems. When you look at this from the inside of the hurricane, I guess, when you look at the problems that Western sports is having to deal with, when you look at the culture in the United States, when we talk about bull riding and where bull riders are coming from, this has the potential to help with that process. It also fixes one other problem. If you're a home fan, if you're in Austin or Kansas City or Nashville or Oklahoma or something along that, this gives a new dynamic for the fan to divest or invest some equity of their time and their emotions into bull riding that has never been there before. And I am seeing that manifest itself just through the home crowd experience that we've had. And now this is the second year, and our live show is totally different from what it was a year ago. But if Kansas City is any sample of what we're going to see going forward from a fan's perspective, and the league's got a long ways to go. There's a lot of left and right turns that we're going to take. And as we meander, it's kind of like we're meandering through a forest, trying to get out of it, and who knows which routes we're gonna take, and so there's a lot to this, and I think that it has a potential to really be a game changer when it comes to the sport, not only from the fans' perspective, from the bull riding's perspective, from the sponsorship side of this. From the the monetary what's the word I'm looking for, responsibility side of it. It brings more people, executives and more businessmen and women into the game. that didn't have a say in it before. And so, I think when you look at it from a 35,000 feet perspective, there's so many different things that this thing could really take care of a lot of big issues that we're seeing. Because listen, just real quick, and not to really drill down on this, but listen, you got to be like living under a rock to not understand that marketing is changing also, and the way that sponsors are spending their dollars is changing, and so that also has an effect on a lot of things. So there's a lot of tentacles of this, and I think that there truly is something that is really cool coming out of it. And I know that I've seen it from a bull rider perspective this summer, going to some of the summer events. You're seeing some young men that I hadn't seen before, and I would talk to them and go, and they all go, yeah, I'm really hitting it hard. I want to be a part of the team's deal. And I think there's something to that, man.
Let me expand a little on real quick on what Clint said, how it's changing some things. Let me throw this out. Like we can tour around in our regular season where we crown a world champion, like last spring and winter, we had record crowds everywhere. Like there's big crowds. So people say, well, we got huge crowds, this team's deal. Why do you need this? Well, we're in a city, I'll pick a city, people in Manchester, New Hampshire, we sell that place out both days and they go crazy, but they walk away and they may never look on their phone or on their TV the rest of the year and know one thing about bull riding going on, except for those 2 days in their city, and that's fine. And that's what we as rodeo people and bull riding people have lived off of our whole lives. So if we want to just do that, we're okay. What this does is perhaps this weekend in Nashville, Kansas City was a great example. Now this week we go to Nashville as we record this. Those people in Nashville are like, wait, this is our freaking team. Well, this is the Stampede. And they cheer. And maybe there's just a few of them. Maybe there are just a few of them that when they walk out, they go on Instagram and go, oh, Nashville Stampede. And they follow their team on Facebook and they follow them. So every day they get up and they drink their coffee and they scroll through their phone and go, hey, Betty or Sybil, whatever, those Nashville Stampede, they go to Austin this week. Man, they won a game. That's it. Maybe that little. And so it gets now good old rodeo and bull riding fans. Well, I don't like this shit. Even cheering for each other and high fiving. Well, that's okay. Wait till November and we'll start another season. Here, really quick though, there was a guy I'm at the NFR last year. There's an old guy, and I can picture him, and Clint would know him if he saw him. He's a good friend of Chad Berger's, good buddy, and can't remember. And his seat was right beside mine. He had a single ticket in there. So he starts, first thing, people have, what do you think of this teams thing? And the first thing I want to say is, why do you give a shit what I think? Like, does that influence you? I said, oh, it's fine. He said, I don't like it. Well, thanks for asking me. He just wanted to vent. He goes, I don't like it. I don't like all that high-fiving and throwing hat bullshit and blah, blah, blah. No kidding. That day, that night at the NFR, we were right behind the chutes. All you had to look down when every Wright brother rode, all the other Wright brothers were gathered around him cheering, just like the teams do. It's the same thing. So anyway, I just expand off what Clint said. It's a different level, and the PBR is about to put a whole bunch of money into player development stuff as well, so they can expand teams, so that we're developing these young guys to teach them how to ride, teach them how to do it right, and make them better. So that's a big, people miss that about the PBR. PBR might do things that people don't like, but there's a lot of development of young guys going on there, right, Clint? It's
and listen, let me go just a little bit further. This is not so, well, we just want to be new and we want to be cutting edge. I think when you really peel the onion back, Ted, what you're going to find is this is addressing systemic issues that the C-suite executives see 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road. And I mean, we could talk all day long. Like this summer, I saw some of the greatest professional rodeo that I've ever watched. Like, I watched Deadwood, South Dakota on Thursday night, one of the greatest circuit pro rodeos that I have ever seen, just like in one night. And we can talk about where, the Western sport athletes, cowboys and cowgirls, are coming from in pro rodeo, and then we talk about bull riding and look at the numbers and the culture in the United States. And, just like I mentioned, the marketing dollars are changing. We're trying to create a solid, consistent fan base with which Flint hit on, and so these are reactions from forward-looking issues that are coming. And so I think that's another way to look at it. I think the status quo, if the league didn't decide to go and do this, they knew and know that they are running down a road that is going to be very hard to maintain if you had nothing but, let's say, just Brazilian bull riders. If you had no Canadian bull riders, no Australian bull riders, no American bull riders, and listen, we're not doing anything. The country isn't doing anything to foster the Western lifestyle, and so this is not just to be the new kid in town and do something new and a brand new shiny car or whatever it is. I think this is a reaction to where we are today and where they want to take the sport, and I think that's why the PBR teams was created.
It makes a lot of sense. Even the NHL, National Hockey League, there's mostly Canadians on the teams, but the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars, the hometown crowd cheers for them because that's their team. It doesn't matter that it's a team of Canadians, but
exactly,
right.
But it's a home, it's that team in that market.
And
that's it.
Yeah,
Go
Clint,
ahead.
I want to, and then we'll kind of get to this, but I want to expand on, you bring up a really good point on something. And Ted, and the reason it stood out, what you just said, is Ted can relate being in Canada. There's some stuff going through the Montana legislature right now to make rodeo the official sport of Montana and things. So there's local things. But do you think our federal government and the people on the East Coast, or Ted, especially your federal government, whatever you call it, gives a rat's ass about the Western lifestyle that much? They not only they think the Western lifestyle has zero effect on it, that includes ranching, farming. They don't get it. And if it disappeared, it wouldn't matter to them until it disappeared. And then they'd go, oh shit, what the hell have we done? So it's like the old thing, raising your kids. If we don't raise our kids and teach them about ranching and the Western lifestyle, that's one generation from our family we lose. So we got to do that. The country's the same way. They don't. It's a battle for us in rural America, and not just rodeo, but just the ranching, any kind of Western lifestyle. It's a battle right now to stay alive, to keep it going. So if this is one way, like Clint said, if this is one way to do that and foster new riders and new fans, then I guess it helps. So there you go. So when everybody starts going, I get messages. Listen, Pete, I get a message from a guy the other day, and it's long. Flint, maybe you'll answer me. I've emailed the PBR like 10 times and they won't respond. And I told him I'm pissed about this team shit and I'm not watching again until they get rid of it. Why won't they respond? Maybe you will. And I responded with, what is their response supposed to be? Like, you just custom. You're taking the time 10 times out of your day to send them a message, but you won't turn on your freaking TV and watch Buller. I said, you're missing out. I said, here, I'm answering you. I don't know what you want. Like, it just baffles the shit out of me. Like, somebody takes the time out of their day to comment on the Montana State Bobcat football team. They suck. But here you are, you took
do you have that guy's email address?
It was a direct message, but I still have it. Yeah.
Oh.
I told him I have a lot of shit in my life that causes me more stress than bull riding on TV.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of comments, Flint, I had this one from our editor, Sean Morton, just going on the other side of things just to mess around. But Sean was wondering, he said, was it strange that the PBR CEO announced your retirement before you did? Was that a
okay? So I wasn't gonna say any. It was not. it was never going to come from me. It was going to come from the organization. Like
Okay. That was the plan.
I owed it to the PBR. I mean, I worked for the PBR. That's where I've been the last years. It needed to be an official news release. That was completely, I informed them. They typed up a press release, sent it to me to read and approve. I made a couple little things. That's not right. And then it was going to come out at 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Sean just had to put his own post out the night before in his words. I just wanted to get ahead of it a little bit. I'm like, Sean,
come on, man.
Mr. Gleason, the commissioner or the CEO. Like, so he came out before the press release and I shook my head at him, but what can I say? He signs our checks.
He's the boss. Yeah.
But that was never, I had several people say that should come from you. Usually like in pro sports and stuff, it comes from the organization, like the team or the NFL has announced. That was the way to do it. I didn't want to, and plus I didn't want to be, hey, everybody, I've decided to call it quits. What do? Do I smile? Do I put a fake tear? So I just needed it to come from a source, and PBR has more people that follow them than I do. That was the plan. But Sean did beat it by about 12 hours. And somebody texted and said, oh my gosh, Sean Gleason's post, I didn't know you were retiring. I went, what? Oh, no. And I went on and went, you fucker. I wasn't mad. It just, yeah.
It's just like, oh, dang it. Okay.
I didn't know. Like we call that at the NFR. They always had to say, we call it the Sonny Linger statue. Sonny Linger was the shoot boss or the rough stock guy forever. And they got him in front of the shoots and thanked him for all his years of service and gave him a statue. And he didn't know he was quitting. Like what?
What?
So yeah. Wait, what?
So things are going good on the broadcast though, and you're enjoying the next piece. That's kind of the wrap that up. As long
as people never again ever say, do you like TV better than being in the arena? It's like, I did that for 30 years. You think all of a sudden 3 weeks into
nothing
like I said this on my little broadcast the other day. If you ask an NFL football player 1 season removed from playing at the highest level of his profession, and he goes into the booth and you say, oh my God, do you like commentating better than you did playing football? He'll punch you in the face. Like,
that's right.
That's tough. So no, I don't like it better, but don't put me in. When I say no, I don't like it better, then people are like, oh, geez, you don't like it, huh? No, I like it. I don't like it better.
Yeah.
Like, my knees don't hurt as bad. So,
yeah.
I miss you.
I know, Clint, I'm right below where he's announcing from, and I got my IFBs and he goes, hey, he yelled at me and I pulled my ear out. He goes, get your ass out there. Just get out there. He's yelling at me.
Well, okay. One more thing though. Who the heck, there's a shortage of entertainers in our business everywhere. I think, Brinson comes to our shows from Florida because we don't have very many people in this business that are doing that. Like, number one, what's the issue? What's going on, and who are the next people that are going to do this?
He's coming to Nashville.
Brinson. Oh, he is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, Ted, here we go again. I mean, this ought to be Ted, this ought to be one of the ultimate qualifiers that something's broken, like that we have a problem. I'm not going to go back and relitigate what I said a little while ago about why I believe that the team was created, but you just when you guys on the table a question, and there's got to be a reason for that. If 30 years ago there wasn't a problem with that, and you had a lot of heck, go back to those days, Leon Coffey, Quail Dobbs, I could just go on and on and on. Well, the reason, and you can't lay the blame of this all at the feet of Flint. He was just doing his job, and he redefined a whole genre of how you do something that I would assume that he probably took about half the eligible candidates that said, I think I might want to go do that. And then they see Flint and they go, well, probably not. And but that's not Flint's fault. And
True.
so, you got to ask yourself, well, why? Why is that? And there's got to be a really good reason behind it. And I know that I miss Flint in the arena because what we're doing is it's heavy. Like bull riding is heavy when you look at it from a psychological standpoint, from a fan standpoint. You ask yourself the question of, and I'm getting to Flint here. I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but
down that rabbit hole, playa.
I know,
Down that rabbit hole.
I know, but you ask yourself a question from a fan's perspective when they buy. Why do they buy a ticket? To come watch what and really emotionally why they do it. And it's a heavy sport to watch, and it's fun to watch, and it's exciting, but it's also heavy in reality. And so you need a little bit of that relief to pull you out. And Flint was just so good at his job that he had the ability, just like watching a tennis tournament, go back and forth. And we needed a little bit of that levity just to smooth out the seriousness of what we're watching. And I do feel that right now, Flint. I feel that in the arena, and I don't know how to deal with that because I'm not funny. Let's just get that, out of. Oh, come on. Don't even start that.
Yeah, but so Brinson's coming to a few of them, Ted, and the team thing, he fits pretty well because it doesn't take a lot of talking. And that I think people didn't see that in my career. It wasn't all vocal. It was visual.
Action.
It was engaging, just engage. Look the people in the freaking eye, and Brinson fits the teams deal because it doesn't take, there's different timing to those team shows than normal, but even there's different part of the deal with PBR is, when I announced I was done in the dirt, it was kind of entertaining, but kind of irritating where people, well, I hear Justin Rumford told him no, and it's going to be John Harrison. They're picking all these rodeo guys who are great rodeo clowns, but all the years that I did the Unleash the Beast or Built Ford Tough series, I kind of developed what that character and what the role of that position was. So to just take a guy and think you can throw him out there, oh, he's a good rodeo clown, go ahead. And those guys are great. It's a different game. So it's almost like the PBR has to kind of reevaluate and go, okay, which person can handle what we're doing and fit in? And we're bringing up Brinson because when he's available, he's doing some this fall, but Matt Merritt has done a lot of the velocity tours. So he's got that TV commercial structure. What are we selling down in his head? It's not a plug in and go. Rodeos do it every year. They'll have Justin Rumford 1 year, John Harrison 1 year, and then they'll get JJ Harrison 1 year and they plug him in because you're just in and out.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. It's a different game. Yeah, entertainment wise it is. But what I think? I think there's a shortage of a lot of guys because I think they want the life, but they don't want the grind of looking those people in the eye and going.
Yep.
And when I stepped in that arena, I looked at those people and went, all right, what have I been dealt today? What can I do? I wasn't thinking about getting back to the trailer and having everybody gather around and we'll start a fire and play the guitar. I don't give a shit. I didn't give a shit about it.
No.
Anyway, there you go.
One thing you guys have mentioned is the development of the bull riders. And I've said it before that I think the development and the investment dollar wise was really lacking and has been lacking on the development of the bull riders over the last probably 15, 20 years, where the bulls, all the money's been on the bull side the last 20 years. So I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to hear that that's in the works. So I just want to put that in before we get into our talk. We're already half an hour in here and we haven't even got to the topic yet, but we had to get to a few things. But I talked to you guys last week and I said, for 150th show, I'd love to have you guys on because, and have the conversation about the greatest bull riders of all time because, and I asked you guys because I think that both of you, there aren't likely many other people that have seen these guys ride most of these bulls over the last, 15, 20 years, right? So I don't know if there's anybody that has. Like I would say Jerome Robinson did before he passed away. He'd probably seen more than you guys, but you had been at all these events for the last, he would have been a guy that had seen all these guys ride, and he would have been able to tell us.
Jerome Robinson.
Right?
Yeah, that Jerome
Right, he would've
Robinson knew more about bull riding than, I always hear this guy knows more about bull riding than any man I know. Well, I do. I know another guy, Jerome Robinson. And I've discovered I'm in a position on TV behind the chutes and I think they kind of wanted my role to be, me and Luke Branquino, where we say, hey, coach, what just happened there? Let's get a word. Flint's down there with such and such. I don't enjoy that as much. What I'm catching myself doing is watching a guy get ready in the chute going, he's dicking around in there, or he knew that bull was going to do this. I've discovered, I do know bull riding. The problem is I don't think people look at me that I have that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, you're supposed to be the funny guy, not the actual.
Yeah.
expert
What
in
does
the
he
sport.
know? Well, I've had people say, you can talk about bull riding. I've watched a lot of bull riding. So I do feel like that. And Clint's the same way. Our jobs all these years, we're watching everything. Like, you got to pay attention, and by assimilation, you kind of can pick apart a ride, see what somebody's doing. And Clint's an old twister himself, so.
Yeah, but never on that level. But yeah, I hear you. I've always said I've been extremely fortunate to have watched the best bull riders in the world for so long. So I had this conversation with Cord McCoy last week. It's like, I know when there's a problem. Like, I technically can see that there's a problem with somebody because I've watched them week in and week out on the best bulls in the world. My biggest issue is those very, very small, minute problems I don't know how to fix. Like, there's a couple of things that I go, ooh, I wonder how you fix that.
I'm that way. So, that's just my life. Like, that's life in general. Yeah. Like, man, I know there's a problem, but I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix it.
Damn it. Yeah.
So the question today, though, that we're posing is the greatest bull rider of all time, and it's not an easy one to answer. But
are we doing the greatest one of all time, or are like 10 best?
Top 10? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Greatest ever. Yeah. Top 10.
Do they got to be in order? I
kind of wanted to get them in order. I would like to. I know it's not going to be easy, but that's the intention. That's what I want to try and do. I know, but you're shaking your head because it's hard. But I made this list, and we've done a few before. Like I was saying before we got started, and all the ones that I did previously, it seemed like the order was pretty proper. It seemed like it was right. But this one I'm struggling with because I put all this data together, and now I feel like I'm completely wrong. So I don't know.
There's so many. But Ted, we were talking before we started recording, and we saved some of our comments. Here's the issue with bull riding. There's just so much of it. Like, you can look at bareback riders and bronc riders, and really there's one outlet for the last however many years, and that's professional rodeo. If you can get statistics, you can get that data, then it gives you a pretty good. I mean, we could sit here and go through the best bronc riders in the world, and it's pretty straightforward. The problem with bull riding is there is now different outlets. You have the PRCA and you have the PBR. You got guys that did both early on. They all did both. Then there's, people, it's a hard thing to track. We don't have statistics from the older guys like we do to the younger guys. I mean, every out they take in the PBR, they record the bull, they record the guy. There's so much that it is hard. How does this guy compare? Okay. Sage Kimsey has won all those world titles, but he never rode in the PBR. So does that put him on what level? A better level, a worse level? It's hard. They're just a lot.
And listen, Ted, if you'd have asked me this question in 1975, it would be different than what it was in 1985, 1995, 2005. So, man, we can attack this from so many different angles. And if you want to get down to 10, I feel good at getting down to 10 of them, and I see no problem with the 10 that I have, of the 10 bull riders that I've seen on the list, and of course of the list that you put together, that would exactly have been the 10. But I believe that we need to expand on that conversation because there's so many different qualifiers, and I've said this on another podcast here a couple of weeks ago. Without Freckles Brown, Larry Mahan, some of these greats in that genre, would there have been a Don Gay? Without Don Gay, would there have been a J.W. Harris? Would there have been a Sage Kimzey? How much influence? We know how much influence that Freckles Brown had in that
Tim
friendship
Shoulders.
with Lane Frost. Well, no, with Freckles and Lane Frost,
Yeah.
they had a great relationship, and look what Lane's career did for rodeo and bull riding, and we could talk about JB Mooney, and I got somewhere to go with him too. So
it's that whole generational thing. Listen, basketball's been through this. Bob Cousy, old black and white film. Bob Cousy was one of the greatest point guards of all time, playing for the Boston Celtics. That sumbitch couldn't shine Steph Curry's shoes right now in athletic ability. And it's the same in his time. He was that. So he was good. But when you're judging who are great players, is he or isn't he? Now in basketball, I tend to say Wilt Chamberlain is one of the top 5 basketball players of all time. Well, what would he do now? Well, he'd be really tough, but I tend to give him credit basketball more than I do in rodeo, because I think there's a marked difference in we have a factor they don't have in other sports, and that's livestock, because the livestock they are getting on at every level now, from bareback horses to saddle bronc horses to bulls, is at a so much higher level. No matter what the old farts say, it's a different level. So that factor comes into me when I say who's the greatest. Yes, Freckles Brown, Larry Mahan, they were some of the greatest. Larry Mahan, I mean, he was a game changer in everything, marketing, superstar. That doesn't mean he was one of the greatest bull riders of all time,
right?
But I give him that credit, but I think it's a little different scale. Anyway.
I'm so, I don't know what to do now. I feel like
should we just say the greatest bull rider of all time is Canadian Cody Snyder and call it good, Ted? Is that what you're getting at?
Sorry, Cody, but no. Cody was a bit, I think Cody was a bit sad when we had Daryl Mills number 1. We talked to him about it quite a bit. Because if you look at all the different things that Cody's done since, and no offense to Daryl has put on an event for a couple of years, and he's got his kids in the high school rodeo ranks now and whatnot. But like, if you counted everything Cody has done outside the arena, Cody is absolutely number 1 on our list of the best bull riders, the greatest bull riders ever from Canada. Like, absolutely number 1. But I couldn't quantify that part of I couldn't quantify that, so I couldn't justify it at the time, right? But absolutely number 1.
He's such a great story, Cody Snyder.
Oh man, and
leaving home, he's 16, 17 years old and goes to Texas, and
so neat.
That guy is amazing. And injury, he had a bad wrist, that cost him years. And anyway, everybody's got one of those. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, how are we starting this? What are we doing? Are we each giving our list, or what? Come on, Ted, you're the host. You tell me.
Okay, so what I've done previous is I've put point total, like point. I've made up a point system that has sorted them out previously, but now that we have 2 different organizations, and we have, I have like probably 10,000 points in this 10-man list. So what I had done is previously I'd given 100 points for a PRCA World Championship. On this list that I have drafted right now, I gave the PBR more points because I thought that made the list look more reasonable for what I thought it should be. I gave NFR qualifications points, PBR World qualifications points, PBR finals wins, and NFR aggregate titles points as well. So this kind of like objectively sorted where things could be, and then I added a bunch of data on the career average score from Slate at Pro Bull Stats, career high score, and career riding percentage, as well as total records. So it kind of gave me a bunch of data points to use. And my intention originally was to use this point system that I made up to rank these guys. But like I said earlier, once I did this and once I had this on paper, it doesn't look right to me on who the greatest ever is. If we're talking about the greatest ever being who has the most titles, then
but
Donnie
you
Gay's
know,
number one, Silvano's number
but
two.
you know as well as we do, and I put a big note on mine, and I told you this, Ted. So much of it is eye test, and it's same in baseball, football, basketball. Yeah, well, that guy had it, and that's why, you know, in basketball, LeBron James has played 20 years and is still one of the top 5 players in the league, but I still think Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time. Why? Because I watched him. So it's the same. You can't, stats don't tell the story. Then you take in longevity. That's part of being great. And so you know that it's this thing, and everybody it's like a crime. It's like a car accident. The five of us could watch it and describe it, and it's always different, you know?
True.
So and that's our lives, just one big car wreck, you know? And
well, and listen, you can look at the list, Ted, that you put together. How can you argue with the 10 names that are on there?
Right.
Like, instead of arguing over one, how about you argue who was left out of the top 10? Because I can make a case for every one of these men that are on this list. Every one. And who's left off of the list that you sent me?
Well, far,
who is in there? And Flint, you can think about this while Ted and I are talking about it. Who is not on that list that you would have in there as a top 10 right now? You know, unless you're just wanting to drill down and for me to tell you what exactly I think the greatest bull rider of all time is.
You know what I did? I sat like this and just started writing the names that I think. And when I hit the end of what I was thinking, I counted them.
Yeah.
Well, and I had 11 plus 3 that could be, but nobody would put on them.
Oh, really?
Of people I saw that were great. Anyway, are we going to see your 10 or?
Yeah. Why don't I share my screen and show you the kind of the list that I made so far? Just this draft that I made so far. This is not the list. Don't get mad at me for showing you this list and telling me that I'm wrong, but this is what I built so far. This is my draft last week in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, while I was at the rodeo. I had some time. I made some time to make this list and kind of make up this point system on, you know, statistically. This is the order that I have it based on the point system that I completely made up. So you don't have to. You know. I just made up a point system to try and make it objective.
You know what it's called when you just make something up like that?
What?
That's called bullshit? Cowboy shit. That's cowboy shit.
I thought it was bullshit, but that's good.
Well, that too. Yeah.
But just strictly based on points. So I assumed that Donnie had won the NFR twice. He made the NFR 13 times. I could confirm that. And he won the PRCA world title 8 times. So I had him at like 1,100 points. And just based on the stats, I couldn't find any way that anybody else can be close or even, you know, there's definitively he would have to be first based on the stats. You know, there's longevity there from 13 times to the finals. There's 8 world titles. He found a way to win no matter what, right? And then, but one thing that Dustin mentioned, and Dustin took off. He had to go to a meeting here, but he said, you know, and I don't know because I wasn't around and I didn't watch at the time. But who did Donnie compete against? And you know, and no offense to Cody, but when Cody won the world, Donnie was out that year. He was hurt. You know, like, so Cody rode against Don, but the year that Cody Snyder won the world was the year that Donnie was out sidelined. So what's the competition like at this time, right? Unfortunately to say that, but who did Sage ride against? That he didn't ride against anybody on this list except for JW at the end of JW's time in the PRCA. So what's that competition like?
That's a good point.
Yeah, good point. And there may have been a lack of consistency of riders consistently qualifying for the NFR during Sage Kimsey's run. And then but the question that you first asked is who was Donnie's competition? And Donnie's competition was a lot of the PBR Ring of Honor recipients: Bobby Del Vecchio, Charlie Sampson, Wasey Cathy, Lonnie Wyatt, Denny Flynn,
Probably Jim Sharp and Ted Noose as well, right? Early
well,
in their careers, or not quite.
yeah,
Not
well,
quite. Early on, I guess.
Jim was a little bit later on. Donnie's career was basically finishing up at that particular point in time. But man, there were some groundbreaking men, and of course, I mean, I'm a huge Charlie Sampson fan. I love Charlie Sampson, always have, and so man, he had some legit competition back in those days.
Oh,
I mean, you're talking about some groundbreaking guys that today look at the PBR, and that's the reason why I would see Charlie Sampson at the PBR World Finals, because he was just dreaming, going, man, I wish this had been around when I was riding bulls, and so he had some legit competition. It was.
Yeah, I'm not trying to knock it. I was just trying to say, like,
no, it's a good point. Yeah,
what's the competition? Because if we look at this, Silvano, JB, Jose, they all rode at the same time.
Yeah,
and then you have Chris riding against Adriano, and at times McBride, right?
Yeah,
so those guys
completely.
in a similar era.
Yeah.
Then Sage is out on his own, essentially in the PRCA side of things. And then Tough technically would have been a different era as well, right? Because
he was together.
He was kind of early on, like, but not the same time as Chris, because he was doing his own thing. Kind of the same time as Adriano, so you could kind of say,
completely the same time as Adriano, and Ted Noose, Jim Sharp, Lane Frost. They're all on the bus.
Like,
so that was a glory era of bull riding. Like, it was
right.
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Where those guys are all in the green kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and then you snuck in a Michael Gaffney and Owen Washburn and
Troy Dunn.
Troy Dunn. He's one of those additional,
Yeah.
And that's that eye test thing. Troy Dunn doesn't show up on a lot of things, but just like Brendan, I had recorded something with, as we do this, a podcast of mine just came out, and in Brendan Clark's eyes, Troy Dunn's one of the greatest bull riders of all time.
Yeah.
He'd come to go to two Built Ford Tough Series events and freaking fly all the way home to Australia and then come back, and beat up a lot of people. I mean, that's got to count for something.
Just being dirty tough.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting when,
So I'm looking at that, and Silvano rode against JB and Jose, right? Like, he beat those guys to win those world titles, even if the point system.
McBride too.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Even if the point systems were changed a couple times over that kind of timeline, or but he still, just like Donnie, they changed the point system in the PRCA when Donnie was winning the world, and he still found a way to win at the time, right? Silvano still won. He still was the winner at the end of the year, right? But if you counted all the second place finishes for JB, how many more points would he have if you were to award points for being reserve world champ, or points for top 5? Like,
well, right? What if, speaking of people you could do that with, Ted Noose was a world champion in 1985 or whatever. He got second like the next 3 years.
Yeah, had it as what do I have? 4-time reserve world champ.
There you go.
Right?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Laramie Marchi was second.
Yeah, it still probably wouldn't quite put Ted, even if you gave it like 50 points, that would get him to 650, which would kind of get him to the Jose level. If we're going that way. But
my eye test, my opinion, that's what we're comparing is, I think Ted Noose gets left off a lot of lists, but to be a reserve champ 4 times and win the world against
all
Jim, Tough, Lane, Wasted, Ted Noose, you could argue he was one of the greatest. I have him on mine.
Yeah. In your top 10, you have him in your top 10.
He's in my top 11.
Top 11. Just like my top 11. He's my number 11.
Yeah. I mean, you can, when you look at it, because I like what you did, but that's the reason you did it, is to get us talking about it. Because I don't believe you can do it with just a spreadsheet with points. But it's funny when you do, those same 10 guys come up. Now it's up to us to go, but I think Ted Noose should be in there when you really look at his longevity And, everybody has their, I asked JB Mooney one time, who's the greatest bull rider you ever saw? He
Jim
said,
Sharp.
in person? I said, yeah. You know who he said?
I
Brian Cantor.
Oh, yeah. And that's his buddy.
He said, that's the greatest bull rider I've ever seen. Now, that's in a moment. So there's great bull riders in a moment. Longevity does also determine greatness.
Yeah. It has to.
Ted Noose, a world champion, 4-time reserve champion, made the freaking NFR 14 times.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So I'm just picking Ted Noose. Yeah.
Well, but unfortunately, only won the world one time. So probably isn't on the list because everybody else on these lists have multiple world titles. So
I don't know. Byron Walker won steer wrestling world title and he's in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, that's the requirement though, right? You gotta have one.
I know. We could go on about the Hall of Fame.
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I understand.
And Rod Hay isn't in the Hall of Fame. There you go.
How much bullshit is that?
20
and
times.
He was number 2,
times.
I think, on our list of Canadians. He was 2 or 3 on the top bronc riders ever from Canada.
And I'd like to know who. Yeah, I'd like to know who he pissed off because that I do not get that.
Well, you can't because the PRCA, the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, their first criteria to get in the Hall of Fame is to be a world champion.
Yeah.
And Rod Hay made the NFR 20 times.
Yeah.
Greatest bronc riders of all time. If
but
nothing else for what he did, but he didn't win a world title, so he's not. I've been campaigning against that.
Yeah. But Rod also rode against Billy Etbauer and Dan Mortensen. So if those guys weren't winning, right, like those guys, he rode against the toughest ever, the best ever, and he was second fiddle to them. But he just never won. So
the dude was a bona fide warrior.
Oh yeah,
and I enjoyed watching that guy. Yeah,
and the year he was going to win it. Here we're getting off his leg right again.
I know.
He broke his leg in the fall, and then just
in the summer,
the same, and never was the same.
In Innisfail in June, it was June.
Oh,
it was the day that I filled my permit. He was like, he had $100,000 one. Yeah, I was there that day.
Crazy. He was so good.
Oh, so good. And he was like 40, but he was like just kicking ass. So
yeah. Anyway,
anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Clint.
No. I mean, I'm just going back to your list, and I was intrigued, and you had highlighted basically by generation, I guess, when you are our eras, and you had Donnie one color, you had Silvano. Yeah, there you go. And so Flint, I mean, geez Louise, we've got numbers today. So let's go back and talk about the one thing that's not on here. And it's tough because we don't have the numbers, the bull scores. From Donnie's era.
We don't have them from Donnie's, correct?
Yes, right.
But I do have some of this data here that I think sorts it out a bit more. A little bit, just with Silvano's average score 84 and his riding percentage is 46. So how is he the second greatest of all time if he doesn't have as good of percentages as Jose with here, but it's a smaller sample size at 571 outs compared to Silvano at 1,300.
Yeah, and I got to put Jose Vitor Leme on the list, but right now, you know how you just feel like, well, he hasn't been doing it long enough to say he's the greatest bull rider in the world ever.
It's true though.
He might be. When I watch him in a moment, I think that's the greatest freaking bull rider I've ever seen in my life. But it's like, it's hard to do that yet. I don't know. But he rides. Let me tell you, Jose Vitor Leme, it isn't just have a high riding percentage in general. He has a high riding percentage on bulls that nobody else on this list got on.
Right.
Consistently every day.
True.
Yeah.
A higher level of bull, right? And that's why his average score is higher and he's riding 62%. But it's just like Justin. So the PBR made a list and they interviewed all the top guys. They interviewed Adriano and they interviewed, like, you guys are probably on there. I didn't watch all of it, but I saw.
No, they didn't ask me. I saw that special and I went,
what the hell?
No.
Yeah. I watched all these rides. But I saw all these guys, and it was like McBride and Adriano and Ty and Cody and like all these guys that were PBR founders. But the only problem that I found with it was there was no data to back up their. It was strictly opinion. And just for shits here, I wrote down their list, and they had McBride at number 1. And I remember seeing actually, I think Cooper was definitely interviewed for it. Cody was, Adriano was. I don't remember seeing if Chris was on there or whatnot, but like they already had Jose number 5, but I don't know how to put Jose ahead of Silvano. Like I don't know how anybody's ahead of Silvano at number 12 when he won the world 3 times. Like it just seems a bit.
And what's interesting?
Sorry, go ahead.
The interesting thing is they have Jim Sharp at number 3. Jim Sharp was really at the end of his career as the PBR grew. Jim Sharp did not win a PBR world title.
Correct, but they have number 3.
But which is probably legit. Like
he should be number 3, or what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know quite a bit about bull riding, but my opinion is formed a lot about the experts I talk to. And do you know how many really, really great bull riders, for the most part, when you say who's the greatest bull rider of all time, the majority of them say Jim Sharp.
Yeah.
And to me, that means a lot. I'm getting that from people who know way more than I do.
Yeah.
And that's just always in my mind. People ask me who's the greatest of all time. And I always say, I'll tell you who in my career, the greatest. I was influenced by the kind of person he was, the friendship I had, what I think he would do for anybody, the teacher he is, the well-spoken. In my career, the greatest bull rider, because I'm influenced by all of that, is Justin McBride. In my career, now, does that mean when I have to put a list together and say who's on the top and on the greatest bull rider of all time? I don't know. If that, so see, I'm kind of jumping the gun, but
man, gosh almighty, I look at this list and Ted, I mean, like I've intently looked, since you sent it to me, and I look at these men, and how I look at this is every one of them told a story. And it's like, if you had to write a book, every one of these men could deserve a chapter in it because of what they contributed to the sport itself. Because in Donnie's era, bull riding wasn't a standalone sport yet, but his contributions to the story and the narrative that led up to the founding fathers of the PBR creating the professional bull riders is undeniable. The effect that he had on those founding fathers that came after Donnie's generation, his era. When you look at the guys that were the first original investors that came up with the idea, and although they were riding bulls, but they were in high school and college, and watching Donnie get 8 gold buckles, and then suddenly everything shifted, and we go to Las Vegas, and there's a whole new era of bull riders. There's Jim Sharp, there's Lane Frost, Cody Lambert, and just all these great riders. And so every one of these men on here tell a story, and they've all contributed in some way. And that's why I love the fact that J.W. Harris is on here. And we could sit here and talk for hours about what he could have done in the PBR. And I think it's undeniable. Flint, you disagree with me here, but if he'd have come over 3 years earlier, he'd have won a world championship in the PBR.
Yeah, PBR got J.W. Harris at the wrong time of his career.
Yeah.
But here's how when I visualize Donnie Gay, when I see Donnie Gay, I'm a little kid sitting at home watching the Heston telecast, round 10 of the NFR. There's all these bull riders that were cowboys. There's Jerome Robinson and Lacey Cathy and all them guys. Donnie Gay wasn't just a cowboy. He was a star.
That's right.
He dressed a little different. He had a little longer hair. His hat was shaped a little cooler. He'd wear the satin shirt. He was different. The next era with Tuff Hedeman, Lane Frost, Jim Sharp, those guys were all Donnie Gay. Does that make sense? They were no longer just these guys that were bull riders and cowboys that wore the drab shirts, and they were stars. When you had the NFR, there's Tough and Jim, and I mean, then that next era, they just kept coming, and Donnie Gay invented that. I mean, there was Bobby Del Vecchio, you know, dude, I remember him doing that, and that was, the old timers were appalled that he would show the other riders up, you know. But Donnie Gay was that flash. He was a different talent. Donnie Gay, wherever we put him, he's top 3.
Has to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
I 2, maybe 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, in my mind. Now, listen, I'm different era, and I look at it from, as Clint said, 30,000 feet. To me, he invented modern bull riding a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You know, he flashed it up, man. Look at the difference in the way he rode compared to the way early in his career. As he got older, there were some different guys. Early in his career, you look at the way he rode compared to other guys at the NFR at his time. He's kicking their ass and flashing it up, and and I mean, I know where he thinks he should be.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I think we're going to ride about 9 out of 15 tonight. Come on, Donnie, you're full of shit. That's it. So at the NFR, you know, Clint, what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
What do you think tonight, Donnie? Man, I'll tell you what, this is a good pen of bulls. And I think out of 15, the guys are going to ride tonight. We're going to ride 9 of them. We ain't riding 9 of them, Donnie. Come on, man.
Okay. So that leads me to another question though. If you took these 10 guys to the PBR World Finals or the NFR for 10 rounds, you're going to put these guys between 5 and 10 rounds if it's the World Finals or the NFR. If Donnie Gay is strapping in against Jose, both in their primes, who's winning? If they're both riding in their prime at the same time, who's going to win? Like out of these 10 guys, or if you're doing Donnie against Jose,
they're kind of the same. Donnie Gay and Jose are kind of the same, aren't they?
They're identical, aren't they? They both ride left.
Same size. Same size.
Yeah, similar build.
Speak English about the same. No, I'm joking. That's funny. That's a joke. We all know Jose speaks better English than Donnie Gay.
But that's the next question, though. How do you rank them then if they're all riding against each other? I think Silvano and Adriano probably ride 9 or 10 bulls, or they might ride 9 or 10. Like, there's still those guys that are going to ride a lot. But you're going to get JB's picking the rank ones every night, and he's going to ride and make some really big
good way to look at
rides. Chris is going to spur a couple down. McBride's going to float around and knee up and ride them really nice. But
that's what we try to do in other sports. If you take them all in their prime, you know, you're looking.
Yeah.
Oh, good question. Yeah. Adriano rode 10 at the NFR, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Jim Sharp, Adriano.
He's the only
Marias.
guy on this list to ride 10 at the NFR, as far as I know.
Well, I have Jim Sharp.
You have Jim on your list. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
And then Norman Curry was the other one.
Yeah.
10.
Well, and if you go back further, there was a Canadian guy. I forget if it wasn't it? I don't know if it was Leo Brown or Bob Robinson. One of our guys from up home rode all 8 in Oklahoma City.
When it was 8.
When it was 8, yeah. I forget who it was now. I don't have that name memorized, but anyways.
You know, the thing that intrigues me about Marias, and I think that there can be a case to be made for this, when you look at the span of time of his 3 world championships in the PBR, you can make the case that his final world championship, we hadn't hit the crescendo of where bulls were going, but we were headed in that direction when he won that final world championship. The bulls that he faced that year versus the bulls that he faced the very first year that he won the world championship, there's a remarkable difference between those pin of bulls that were selected for for the year that he won his final world championship in the PBR versus the first. And that, of all 10 guys that are on that list, I mean, I truly think he would be the only one that you could quantify or make the statement that he saw modern era bulls. Like those pin of bulls that he had that year. Flint, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
They were
the same
just
tip
starting
today,
to,
but they were just starting to like really. It was a different. The big, the bushwhackers hadn't come yet and whatnot have you. But man, gosh, almighty, he could. An argument could be made that he's seen the old school bulls because the first 10 years, 15, 12 years of the PBR, maybe 15 years of the PBR. Those were almost the same type of bulls that they were getting on in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
In the span of, Tough Hedeman's World Championships and, whatnot have you. But I don't know. That's one thing that I think about when I look at that list and putting in the qualifier of the type of bulls, because we haven't even drilled down on that. But
yeah. Anyway, well, and we could do that for 2 hours, but I don't have 2 hours. So
yeah.
Got to make your flight still.
Yeah, I do. Like I said earlier, there are so many guys that I admire and respect and have so much more knowledge than I do. The one thing you don't have, like, you don't have complete statistics on what Jim Sharp's riding percentage in a season was. Like, there was a season he rode, I mean, maybe you have it. I just, like, is that his ride? Does it say what, like, where'd those statistics come from? Like,
this is all what we have actual data on from Slade Long's Pro Bowl stats. So
yeah.
This is what's on there, and this is a lot of NFRs. And actually, let me show you. Hold on.
So it might be.
If I can go to Pro Bowl stats and go to Jim
So
Sharp.
I would imagine. So what you're looking at is NFR and PBR, but not like regular season. I'll bet. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let's look at it here. So this looks like mostly PBR stats, but let's go look at the records and see what we have.
And Jim Sharp.
Yeah, this is all the way to 05.
Yeah, but it's PBR stuff. Okay. That's all. Those are all PBRs.
Yeah, so far.
And Jim was kind of at the end of his career, right, Clint, in the PBR.
Yes.
That was the end of his career.
But this goes all the way back to 97, 95.
Right.
95.
Right.
Yeah.
94 was year one. So this is basically his entire PBR career.
Right. I'll go. That's good. And I'm with you on that. That's his PBR career. Great. But do you know, have you ever heard people talk about what his riding percentage was in a rodeo season when they go to 100 rodeo?
I've heard. Yeah.
Their seasons.
But how legit is it though?
Well, either way, you're getting on 100 bulls a year and riding 90% of them.
Yeah.
So
but
no
what
matter
was the actual
what
number, I wonder.
But no matter what you're getting on, that's where people say there was a time he rode like 30 some bulls in a row.
Yeah.
And that comes from like Cody Lambert telling me. We went somewhere and he just rode everything. You know what Cody Lambert told me about the movie 8 Seconds? The guy that got screwed the worst in the movie 8 Seconds was Jim Sharp, because Jim Sharp traveled with him the whole time. But what Cody said was, well, he didn't really fit in a Hollywood movie because he never bucked off and he didn't say shit. So he never talked and he never bucked off. He said didn't fit in the movie. So they eliminated him out of the movie. So it's kind of interesting. He was too good, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Heck, Flint, I remember watching the NFR telecast, and for the life of me, I can't remember who was commentating it on those, when back in the day when we only got the 10th round. And we didn't have enough money to have satellites, so I didn't get all 10 rounds back in those days. But I do remember the commentators talking about so many times over and over and over again, he just made them look too easy.
Yeah.
He just
made
them look too easy.
Ted, I do remember, and the reason I said, yeah, that's PBR, I wasn't brushing you off.
Yeah.
But I remember being in the arena and Jim Sharp bucking off bulls, and it just was, he was getting older. His body was giving out on him, and it was sad. And the guys were like, you don't understand how many bulls he rode. Like, the PBR was different, I don't know. There's so many people that say Jim Sharp's the greatest bull rider of all time that I guess I think Jim Sharp was the greatest bull rider of all time.
Huh.
I do.
That's your.
I don't know. I don't know who else I could put above him. I mean, someday will it be Jose Vitor Lemi? Yeah, could be if he goes another 4 years and keeps riding like he does. Yeah, he'll be the greatest bull rider.
Well, and then one thing I didn't put on here, which I probably could have, is Jose's PBR team's MVP. Going back to the teams side of things, I look back at the hockey side of things. I've had this conversation before where I think the league MVP could essentially be your former world champion, because I think we're technically devaluing both the world title season a little bit with the way that the format has changed. It's got to be it's like a 4 months or a 6 month season now. It used to be like a whole year long, right? But it's
way more. But it's close to the same number of events. Like our season, our regular season is going to be like 26.
Okay.
Something. And it used to be, we went January to May and took a break. And then, so we do like
13
16
and 13 or something.
We do. It never was a split. We do like 18 and 8 or something. It was always a 2/3, 1/3 kind of a thing.
The point that was brought up the other day though, is that season is so short now, where previously JB was hurt half of 2013 or 15, and he came back in the second half and won everything and won the world, where now that couldn't happen because he can't get hurt in January and come back and do that in May. The season's too condensed. So something like that's no longer possible. Now
that we have a season straight through from November to May, a lot of people step up and go, well, it's bullshit. It's no fair, because if a guy gets hurt, then he doesn't have a chance to win a world title. I said, you mean like every other sport? I mean, what happens if a football player gets hurt second game? You're screwed. And not that makes it right or wrong, but we always want to be, well, these Cowboys, it's like every other sport. Oh, this is their sport. I have a saying, the Cowboys want to be treated like professional athletes until they get treated like professional athletes. But our season is the same thing. Well, correct. If he gets hurt, then he's probably can't make that comeback and win the world title. Right.
True.
If Tom Brady tears up his knee the fourth game, so again, I'm not lessening it. I'm not trying to, but that is the reality of sport. That's part of it, I guess.
True. That's true. So for my list, compared to your list, Flint, I'm missing Jim Sharp. Flint, what does your list look like compared?
You mean on your top 10 list? You don't have Jim Sharp. What about in your?
I have Jim 12th.
What about, is that just by your numbers, or what? You tell me. What do you think in your heart, though? What do you think?
If I was going to rank it that way and go based on the adding in these, I think these stats tell a lot about who's going to win on average, in a head-to-head situation. I think this kind of takes some of the heart out of it. Because and based on these numbers, I don't think I can put Jim Sharp that high, because the guys that rode with him speak highly, but based on this data that I have, and again, this is only PBR data, but the numbers don't, the numbers take the opinion out of it. And by having these stats here, Jim Sharp, based on these numbers, can't be on the list that I have here, because he doesn't qualify technically.
And if you're in your heart, you don't think Jim Sharp's in the top 10, that means you're dumb.
That means I'm dumb. And my list is horseshit. But I never saw him ride in the PRCA, and I don't know, it might be the stuff of legend a little bit. I don't know for sure, but until I saw those numbers and saw those cards and saw this actual 90% riding percentage, this stat line here doesn't tell that story. And this stat line shows that the PBR Bulls maybe beat him up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he didn't stay on as many. 41%.
He was just at the end of his career. Okay. I mean, he just didn't.
But that goes back to 94. But maybe more of his end of his career, it's skewed a bunch. But that's the worst riding percentage on this list of the top 10 that we have data on. We have data on 9 of 10. The only one we're missing is Donnie Gay. Everybody else has at least a few. Even Tough has.
Again,
63 stats.
I'll emphasize, and I was younger and not paying quite as much attention, but I will emphasize because it got the same way with Ty Murray in the PBR.
Okay.
When guys were like, that's not really Jim Sharp. Like Clint, I don't know if you're it's like, yeah, that's Jim Sharp. Ty Murray got to where, his body was given out. It's like, that's not the Ty Murray we saw rodeoing. That's not and it wasn't that the Bulls beat him up because they were getting on the same Bulls at that time.
Okay.
When you look at late 90s in the PBR, there wasn't that huge of a difference. Somebody watched say I'm full of shit.
Listen, your total number on Jose Vitor Leme 640, correct, Fed?
I've got 571 for records from
I'm
640 points. That's correct. Yeah.
Yes. Jim Sharp has 630.
Correct. He's right there. Yeah. And I don't have all the data.
Well, you're right. And I'm with Flint on this. I have a hard time not having him on the list.
Fair enough.
In the top 10. And the only one that I would say that if I had to drop at this moment, because he's really he's not even, I don't believe he's halfway through his career, and that's Lemmy.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows where this guy's gonna go? I mean,
hey,
there's speculation, our hypotheticals, given the data that we have and the resume that Lemmy has put together. And we're also missing a little bit that the same thing can be said about Jim Sharp. They're basically hypotheticals because we don't have the data. And if you look at your total number here, they're not far off from each other from the limited data that we have for Jim Sharp. And I've heard the same stories that Flint heard. Geez.
And it makes sense if all the best guys, like if all these guys are talking about Jim and he's number 2 on the PBR list, and it's coming from Justin and Adriano and all these main top guys, then I believe those guys. I'm not knocking that. Yeah. So I believe them. And that's one thing unfortunately we're kind of not unfortunately, but we don't have McBride telling us who should be on the list or Mooney or we're not having that conversation with those guys today. So it's
want me to call him?
Perspective.
Want me to call him?
You could if you wanted.
So I might.
Should we call Donnie?
When no, we don't have that kind of time. But who? Yeah, I'll tell you who I would, and then I want to tell you something. Who I would on camera call up, and he would have answered the phone and told us. Jerome Robinson.
Yeah.
Would have. Yeah. So I sat down a couple of days ago and I've been thinking, and I just thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to write names down from my brain, from my heart right away. The guys that I visualize. You want to know the first ones I wrote? And it doesn't mean that they're at the top of the list, but visualizing great bull riders who I think are the greatest of all time. I wrote them on a card. There's my card right there.
Yeah.
The top name, the first 5 names I wrote: Chris Shivers, Justin McBride, Jim Sharp, Donnie Gay, Sage Kimsey. Then Adriano Marias, JB Mooney, Jose Vitor Leme, Silvano Alves, Ted Noose, Tuff Hedeman. And that turned out to be 11. And then, I wrote on the bottom,
J.W. Harris.
Honorable mentions. I didn't. And I love J.W. Harris, but I always felt like he fell in between an era of PBR guys going here. And I love J.W. Harris, and he should be on this next level.
Yeah.
I wrote Guilherme Marchi, Troy Dunn, and this is from my heart, Robson Palermo.
Oh yeah.
True.
How about that? The great, in my mind, the greatest PBR bull rider to never win a world title.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So
but
that's
finals like 3 times.
When I'm just brainstorming, I spitballing, man. I'm spitballing. Those are the names that came up.
Yeah.
Right there.
Did you have Tough on your list?
Yeah. I did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I wrote him towards the bottom. That doesn't necessarily mean he was at the bottom, but yeah. And you know what? None of us, I didn't on the list, and instantly, because of fame and Hollywood, Greatest bull rider of all time. What do people always say? Greatest bull rider of all time. Lane Frost. Well, yeah, Lane Frost was a world champion and such an influential figure. That doesn't mean he was one of the greatest bull riders of all time.
Probably one of the most well-known. If you're going to give points for that. Yeah.
Right. There you go.
Clint, who was on your list when you made a list like this? Or did you have one? I never asked you that question.
Yeah. No, I unfortunately don't have it here with me, but okay. I did. And again, I think you hit exactly where I was at when I was formulating this once you proposed the question. But Jim was in my top 12. And I mean, you had every name in here with Jim Sharp, and I had a hard time not putting Jim Shoulders in there, but I had him in there. But again, I look at things a little bit differently, just kind of like, what we talked about. I look at the contributions that these men did to the sport to propel it forward. And so just like he had Robson Palermo in there, just from, and he's right. I agree with Flint. I look at contributions. I look at things through a different lens than just the numbers. Because again, it goes back. These men were building a narrative to where we are today. And, excuse me, pardon me. JB Mooney, I look at when I'm in Cheyenne the other day and they start playing his music. They played the same music that we played for him when he was in the PBR, and you heard the crowd, the buzz happen. And I go, man, what if JB didn't ride Bushwhacker in Tulsa that day? What would that have not done for the sport? Well, what did it do to help propel the sport forward? And Sage Kimsey, there's one of my big all-time fails back when people were asking me about how great Sage was. And until I saw him actually really challenged, I was on the fence about how great this guy was to put him on a pedestal up there with Donnie Gay. And then I saw him get tested and he passed the test. And I went, my goodness, man, this guy's a unbelievable talent. And so, I look at his contributions and Donnie Gay's contributions and Silvano and Adriano and just what they've all done for the sport. Larry Mahan, Freckles Brown, they all had a story, and they all were at a point, at a pinnacle in Western sports. At one point, they were at the top, and they contributed to pushing the product forward to what we have today, and they all deserve honorable mention for the hard work and the dedication and the suffering that they did.
I think in doing this, Ted, I think you can do in an order. We could come up with a hypothetical top 3 or 4, maybe 5, and then the rest are just on the list. Well, that's how I feel.
I think that I just redid a couple things here, and I just added it to make it a top 12. And I think this is, this is pretty close, honestly. And I think that it'd be tough to kind of argue with some of the numbers based on
actually, you're right,
just total data. Maybe this, because my intention was to make a definitive list. I know it's not easy to do, and I know that not everyone will agree with it, but I think it's important to do it objectively and take some of the opinion out of it and just be like, this is based on titles, because that's the only thing we can technically put a real number to. This is kind of what the list is.
Yeah.
And it's probably a close order, honestly.
Do you know that far off? Do you know that that 1 year Donnie Gay didn't win the world title? The format was the same as when Chris Ledoux won the bareback riding world title,
77,
where they
was this NFR.
I think Butch Kirby won it, didn't it? And it was it was just the NFR. So and Butch Kirby beat Donnie Gay, but if you'd have gone by, Donnie Gay would have had a 9th one if they'd used the same.
True, because that was one thing that Sage told me when I was doing the media stuff at the NFR for years. He said that his goal was 10 world titles because
that's the real.
He thought that Donnie should have had the 9th. Yeah.
Here's something else. In 1997, Michael Gaffney won the world title. That's my gauge. That was the first PBR World Finals I ever did. Michael Gaffney won the world title, and everything the last 2 weeks of the season and every round of the PBR World Finals had to go perfectly for him to win the world title because Adriano Moraes broke his leg and was out. If Adriano Moraes doesn't break his leg 3 weeks before the World Finals in 97, Adriano Moraes is a four-time PBR.
Four-time. That's right.
But there's lots. And if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle, right? But I mean, there's all those little things that you can take into consideration that, Adriano, he gets lost a little. He's stuck around a long time. Adriano doesn't always say things he's supposed to say, or however you want to put it. That guy, you talk about a game changer. You talk about a guy who opened the floodgates of great bull riders coming over. He was the first one. For a guy to come over and win, completely give up everything he knew in his culture, not speak a word of English, and come over here and win, that's crazy.
Oof.
And just for the data's sake, won his first PBR world title in 94, won again in 01, missed 97, like you said, but won again his final world title in 2006.
Yeah.
12 years later.
He telling a story about going somewhere, California, and this bull he's getting on is mean. And he's like, this is bullshit. These bulls are mean. They are so mean. Like, he's got some great stories about when he came over, Remember the story of at Tucson one year, and he had just come over and he wins the round or something in Tucson. They interview him on TV, and Charlie Sampson goes, "It's okay. I'm going to be the interpreter for him." And so they say, "Okay, Charlie, wow, it's good." And they say, "Charlie, ask Adriano how it feels to win here." And Charlie goes, "Adriano, how's it feel?" And he just yelled at him. It was like a complete joke. Like he did. No. Anyway, those are good stories. Yeah.
So how much more could Adriano have won if, hypothetically, he didn't get hosed by the judges because he was Brazilian in the beginning or later on?
That has never crossed my mind, actually. I don't.
Never ever, actually. Okay.
No, it hasn't, Clint. Does that go around? I guess I've never even heard of them. I just wondered.
Maybe that's more of a PRCA question. Maybe I don't know if it ever happened, but I know like different times there's been conversations about somebody doesn't get marked because maybe Silvano doesn't get marked sometimes, and they change the system to change it so because of how he was doing things. I don't know. I'm just asking.
People used to talk about Silvano not getting screwed there. Hey, such and such rode that bull, and he was 89 and a half points. Silvano gets on the bull and he's 86, and they mark the bull a point and a half less. That's bullshit. They're screwing Silvano. That's not true. Silvano was a little bigger guy and pulled his rope really, really tight and tended to sit on bulls. Bulls did not perform under Silvano like they did other guys. That was a fact.
Can the same be said for Jim or Tough or Adriano that rode everything? Did Adriano suck a bunch of rope into him and make him not buck as much? Is that what Jim did? Or did they make him look too easy? Is some of that the same conversation? Did they make the bulls look too easy?
Jim Sharp made everything look easy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
God, he was so good.
And he didn't get out of position either. I mean, he was just so technically correct, and that's the one thing about Silvano. He obviously would pull a lot of rope in a bull, but he could ride out of position, and he could get so far back on those bulls that it would affect how they kick and how they buck. And that would obviously, I'm just going and reinforcing Flint's point, basically just from a different angle on that. And I just happen to be sitting here looking at the top 100 bull riders by qualified rides. Ted, you've seen this.
Is this on Slate's site too? I can't see your phone very well right now, but I'll go look it up.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
Where do I find the
So just list? Go to top 100 bull riders, pro bull stats. You can Google it or whatever you want to do.
Most rides right here. Okay. Mike Lee.
Yeah, look at that. Listen,
wow.
this might be just a hair bit off of obviously what we're talking about, but we've also brought up talking about qualified rides with Jim Sharp. And of course, obviously we're still going to be lacking data when you look at the top 100 bull riders far as for qualified rides. That's it. Obviously, that's the only qualifier here. And it's very interesting to see just in the modern era of the top 12 lists via qualified rides with full data that we have today, with Mike Lee, JB Mooney, Shane Proctor, Marchie, Kimsey, JW Harris, Cody Teal, Silvano Alves, Cody Nance, and LJ Jenkins.
Yeah, here's that list too.
There it is.
Shane Proctor, kind of an interesting name.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I get you guys. I'm not going to dick around anymore.
Okay. Tell us the name.
Hold on. No, I'm making a phone call. I'm making a phone call.
Oh, really?
Uh-oh. Here we
Can
go.
we dial him right in here? Look at that, Aaron Roy too. Interesting.
Hold on.
Okay. All right, well, we're holding on.
We're holding with bated breath.
There's a lot going on There's a lot going on this week in Nashville. He probably won't answer.
Oh, it's McBride.
Yeah.
Busy right now.
You're not going to answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
We tried. You tried.
That bastard. Yeah, I'll think of somebody else. Because I think a lot of it is that instant, like say, all right, real quick, greatest bull rider of all time. And usually what they say right away is you can go all the way around in all these circles and it always comes back to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, to have the 12 men that are on your list, to have them at a dinner table at your house, like theoretically those 12 guys right there, oh, man, what else do you say? Like, what an impressive list of men.
I'm doing it again.
Are you doing it again?
I'm picking somebody else.
Are you calling Cody Lambert?
Michael Gaffney, right to voicemail. Hey, speaking of great bull riders, holy shit, Michael Gaffney.
Oh my goodness.
He rode 9. He rode 9 at the NFR, and the other one, he slapped a bull.
Oh, really?
In the 9th round. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
So going back to this question, just to mess with you a bit more, if we have these 12 on the list, we've decided it's 12. There's no other way to really get around it. It's not a top 10 list anymore. It's top 12. But how's our order, and how far out of whack is it based on what we got here right now?
I think based on your points, if I did top 3 right now, if I from my heart had to do top 3, I would go Jim Sharp, Justin McBride, Donnie Gay. That'd be my top 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and based on the data we have, how would you award points objectively for these guys? Not like how would you how would you do that? Or could you?
I think that because I do think a thing that's missing is guys through their careers like Jim Sharp, like we said, how many the percentage of bulls he really did ride. You know, going where you talk to a Cody Lambert that was in the car with him and saying he'd go weeks and never buck off him. Weeks, you know.
But he doesn't have the titles to back it up, though. He's got 2 PRCA world titles.
Right.
But why didn't he win 8 like Donnie Gay? How do you rank him? How do you rank him ahead of Sylvano?
Well, again, Jim Sharp fell into the
tough time. Or like
Lane Frost won in 87.
Yeah.
You know, and they were all traveling together. Tough one in whenever. So
85.
he's riding against those guys. That was like we said, that was the glory days of bull riding, as far as I'm concerned. Like you pull up a picture of 1988
can you
and
see
look
this
at
list?
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So look at who won around that time.
Yeah, tough one.
Donnie Gay, Ted Noose, Tough Edeman, Lane Frost. Then there's Jim Sharp, Tough Edeman, Jim Sharp, Tough Edeman,
Ted Noose.
So you're wondering why Jim Sharp didn't win more world titles?
Yeah,
look at that.
There you go.
I mean, then Ty Murray, Cody,
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
That's
at
a,
that.
that's a good point, though.
Yeah, that's why.
Flint, I
That's
love
why,
your
yeah.
analogy about that era, about that time when
Yeah.
pro rodeo goes to Las Vegas and that transformation. It was like passing the baton to the next generation, man.
Yeah. I went to the NFR the first time in 1990. I had just finished student teaching and officially graduated from college. And my mom and dad planned a trip with my grandparents and my aunt and uncle. And my grandma got cancer and my grandma and grandpa couldn't go. And my mom and dad said, you just finished college, come with us. 1990. How great, how thrilled do you think I was sitting in that second from the last top level watching the bull riding at the NFR in 1990, and Clint Bronger was there, and the whole
cool.
crap. It was crazy.
Cool.
Yeah.
So just for fun, I weighted the PRCA world titles the same as the PBR world titles at the time. I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
But if I do it like that and make those worth 250 points, like I did with the PBR, then Tuff Tiedemann's number one because he won 3 world titles in that era, and he won the PBR world title in '95 as well. So that kind of puts Tuff number one if you're gonna base points on that. But that also puts Jim Sharp up to like number 4 or 5 kind of thing. Because I could almost change some of this back and make this worth like, make these ones worth 100 just for fun or 150. And that could knock that back a little bit, knock Silvano back a ways. Depending on what we're doing here, like even a bit more.
I test era. There's so many things that can't be quantified with number. And Ted, I'm not insulting you because you're creating an interesting thing where you got to compare numbers and flat out analytics, people with analytics in baseball. Well, the analytics or football, the analytics say to go for 2 after this touchdown, but that's freaking stupid. You know what I mean? There's analytics to everything. Some other analytics. I haven't got to use this on TV yet, and you're not allowed to, Clint.
Okay.
In the original PBR teams draft, general manager Brandon Bates of the Oklahoma Freedom looked at the analytics in the first round, and it had Derek Kolbaba ranked as the 56th best available bull rider to draft. And they took Derek Kolbaba, and he won how many games for them last year? And so it's like, really, there's 55 other guys better than Derek Kolbaba, but that's what the analytics and his riding percentage, all of this stuff told him that. And Derek Kolbaba turned out to be the hero of that team. And analytics said he was 56th on the list.
No way.
Just one example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. There you go. It's a nugget I'm saving for TV. Now somebody will see it and Matt West will steal it.
He'll steal it from you.
That son of a bitch. That freaking Kate Harrison. She'll steal that from you.
That's a neat stat though.
Yeah. Bates told me that. Yeah.
So I feel like I know less now than I did when we started.
No kidding.
But
no, you've been talking to us. You know a lot now.
I think we got a pretty decent list. But tell me though, on the order, what do we think? Like, am I way off? Like, if we're just going on the stats, how do we award Jim more points, or do we, or can we? Like, we can't give Jose any more. And I think I think I'm weighting the PBR world titles a little bit too much comparatively. Like, I think the Jim Sharp ones, like, if you're going like this, like, I think these Jim Sharp world titles in that era are probably worth more.
Keep something in mind. Something in mind too. Clint, you know this, Clint. In the 80s, early 90s, 91, 92, the world title, bull riding world title in the PRCA was as prestigious a championship as there was anywhere. Every great bull rider, that was it. Cody Snyder and I talked about that. When the top 15 in the world went to the NFR, there were no better. That was the 15 greatest bull riders in the world. So what is watered down? Now, there's not less great bull riders now. They're just spread out all over the country and all over the world. So in that Jim Sharp era, you can't manipulate the numbers to move him up. You just got to know that Jim Sharp in that era was the greatest bull rider of all time. That's how I, because you can't quantify it because there wasn't two. You look at Donnie Gate, that was it. Every great bull rider in the world was there. And that, so, and that's what your list is. Jim Sharp. Yeah. You no matter how you mess with those numbers, it's like, shit, how does that happen? But we just know, you just know, you know,
but I like to make it where the numbers know too, but so far I can't figure that out.
It's because you're a nerd, Millhouse.
Because I'm a number nerd.
Millhouse.
Oh.
Yeah, Flint, you bring up a great point about the competition, and they were concentrated in one spot. And today, obviously, we still have great bull riders, but they're spread out a little bit more than what they were back in those days. And I think the same could be said, when you look at Kimsey's world titles, if there wasn't a PBR.
Right. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. And what if Chris Shivers, Justin McBride, JB Mooney, Silvano Alves, how many titles would Sage have?
That's a name. Hey, talk about a name we haven't brought up. I mean, it came up. Chris Shivers.
Yeah.
Look at the number of 90-point rides Chris Shivers had. It's like Jerry Rice wide receiver numbers where you go, how could anybody possibly do that? Chris Shivers, when he came on the scene at 18 years old, everybody went, who the hell is this guy? Like, unreal. Like, he was unbelievable.
So for just for the stats sake again, Chris, we haven't really talked about Chris, but if we look at the numbers here, his average score is second on the list at 87.42. But his riding percentage, 45%, is one of the lower ones on the list. But average score, if you're looking at, on a ride by ride basis, he's second on this list only to Jose.
That because they, what they do? They're both the same size, sort of built the same, small but not fragile.
Look good on a bull.
But they look good on a bull and got the most out of bulls. They picked them up. Bulls perform better under Jose. JB Mooney does the same thing. Jess Lockwood could do the same thing. And Chris Shivers, where they pick up a bull and give them every chance to perform. They're not getting gifted points. Those bulls perform better. Am I right, Clint? That there's something to that.
Yeah, no, there definitely is something to that for sure. I will say this about Chris's numbers, and I don't have his numbers here in front of me. I think the last couple of years before he retired hurt his overall qualified ride numbers.
True.
Stats on that. Just going. He wanted it so bad. And the only reason I say that, Ted, is when Mike White retired, Chris called me looking for somebody to room with him that last year. And I roomed with Chris Shivers the last year that he was on the PBR tour.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And it was, man, I'll look back on that year that it was just, I learned so much, not just about who Chris was, but how he thought about life and bull riding and his mentality. And he was frustrated with himself, but he only knew one way, and that was winning. And he had already knew that his career was over, and said, I probably pushed it a little bit too far.
Oh, wow.
So I will say that a little bit. And I was just honored that Chris would even call and consider me to room with him that last year.
So I gave Sage Kimsey shit last week that his career riding percentage is going to drop because he's currently bucking off like 16 in a row because he's just got to mount those bulls out to make the NFR. Yeah. And he said, I don't give a shit. My riding percentage is still going to be more than most of these guys.
That's true.
Is that your dog? What's your dog's name?
That's my dog. I'm sorry. Coop, chill out. So my dog's name is JW Coop. You remember the... Hey, dude, chill out. Sorry.
Oh, my God.
So I just reorganized the list again, and I kind of I kind of what did I do? I just rejigged it a little bit based on different point systems and stuff. Like if I change the PRCA to be weighted differently than the PBR, but then I get this list that shows, if it's 200 points for a PBR title and 100 for PRCA, then this one, it doesn't, like you talk about Flint, it doesn't pass the eye test. Like it doesn't look like it's in the right order. It weights the PRCA titles too heavily.
Right, because you're in a different era. Now, you can weight them. It's weird because the time frame you need to come up with, like starting in 1995, you weigh it less, but up until that point, it's weighed more because of you could determine the split of when the PRCA or PBR really took off. You know what I mean? You could weight that different because, Justin McBride's not that far. Justin McBride, in my mind, is number 2 or 2 or 3. So anyway, that's
So let's just ask the question though. If I gotta weight Sage's titles. If I'm gonna weight Donnie's at 100 points each, that's the baseline. Back in that time, then Sage's would be, unfortunately, they're gonna be like, you kind of got to make them like 50 or something to weight it, because is that half as much as previously? In JW, like, is it half as much? And then do we put, the Jim Sharp era, do we make those worth 250 or maybe 300 even, because he rode against, if you weight it that way?
But then you got Justin
Noose has got to be worth 300.
And then you got Justin McBride sitting there, who never really pro rodeoed. He just was in the PBR. So it's Justin
in the PBR.
But Justin McBride is an eye test because we watched him. So
So I'm changing it all up here to where the PBR world titles are worth 300 in the modern era, but then that's going to change Silvano to where he's
well,
higher.
Silvano, your numbers are always going to be good for Silvano. Silvano has trouble passing that eye test because he was never flashy, and he went about it in a way that a lot of cowboys and purists didn't like. So when you talk about the eye test, Silvano will never pass that because he wasn't popular. I always give him shit about, you've made a living out of pretending you don't speak English. Silvano didn't care. He didn't care if he did TV interviews. And Clint and I know Silvano, and we really like Silvano, but he didn't help himself in the eye test at all, ever. And didn't care. So that's a tough one with Silvano. And that's why he's farther down on my list, because I was through the Silvano Alves era. And while he was doing it, riding some of the toughest bulls in the world, he didn't pass the eye test to me. It was because he pissed us off. He bled the clock down. He didn't take re-rides. He did everything you weren't supposed to do to pass an eye test. Right, Clint? Am I right on that?
Right. But he won.
You won. Yeah. So if you're going that way, then
his name is on that list and mine isn't. So
true.
That's true. And I've seen you ride 3-spot.
That's not much of a qualifier, but I appreciate it.
But just to switch it up again, this one looks a little bit more.
But I know in my mind, Silvano Alves is not the greatest bull rider of all time.
Statistically, I think I have to agree. I think I have to, but then if we're doing that, we weight his world titles a bit differently.
Well, and that's just Ted, you keep doing the numbers and then I'll tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
I sounded like Cody Lambert right there. Really.
Yes
that's fine.
You know why you're wrong? Because you're stupid. That's Cody Lambert right there. All right.
Okay.
Well, we solved
check this one out quick.
You know what would make that list more accurate? Scroll back down.
Shit.
You could switch 2 and you'd be really close to me if you just switched Silvano Alves and Justin McBride. That'd be a pretty good list right there. If those 2 switch. There you go. And people will say Silvano's the greatest, or Jose's the greatest bull rider I've ever seen. Jose Vitor Lemmy might be the greatest bull rider I've ever seen, but at this point right now, he's not the greatest bull rider of all time.
But my knock on Justin though, is that he didn't have a full career. He kind of did, but he quit early.
You
He
mean
coulda won more.
you mean he didn't keep riding until his body was beat up and going to
Well-
little rodeos all across the country? And
But if you look at the numbers, like I understand where you're coming from, but Jose is like 90 bulls behind McBride. Could you imagine what we would say about Lemme if he quit this season? We would say that he could have been the greatest of all time, but he's not because he quit too soon.
Yeah.
And
No, you're right.
I think for McBride, I understand why everybody puts him up that high, but you can't be the greatest ever if you don't beat everybody long enough. Because Silvano made it work that long. Adriano made it work that long. Like I don't think I can put,
but
just for my list, I can't put Adriano ahead of, I can't put McBride ahead of Adriano because Adriano won for 12 seasons.
If JB Mooney would have retired 4 years ago, he'd probably be higher on my list because I think his legacy is being affected by now. He tells people, what happened at the PBR? Would they piss you off? You come rodeo? And he said, no, I just couldn't ride those bulls anymore.
Yeah.
So that does that affect it. So,
and he was honest about it.
Yeah.
And there can also be a case made in that era when JB Mooney, if you remember, that was the draft era.
Mm-hmm.
When JB Mooney and Silvano Alves was going toe to toe with one another. And JB never ducked.
Yeah.
Like not one time. He took the toughest, rankest SOB that there was on that list. And so I'm not disagreeing with what JB his decisions that he made. But okay, hold on. Let's go down to this. Cheyenne, Wyoming, on the Wednesday after we got done with the teams event. I was there at the Frontier Days. If Silvano Alves was riding in the same performance as JB Mooney was riding, and we'd have started a Silvano song, do you think we'd have gotten any reaction out of those fans that were there?
Not the same.
Do you see where I'm coming from? It's like that eye test, that aura, that narrative. Because every one of these men on this list, even the top 30 list that was put together, they all have a narrative. And that's that eye test that Flint's talking about.
JB Mooney's the biggest star I've ever seen in a live arena in Western sports. Bull riding
right. Because he never ducked. And there's something that's got to be said for that. He never backed down from a challenge. And it cost him. Now, don't get me wrong. It cost him. Silvano is where he is right now because he made the decisions that he made in the draft. JB's bill came in a lot quicker and a lot faster for the decisions that he made. So how do you quantify that on the list? It's hard to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm who knows how many more world titles JB could have done if he'd have played the same game plan that Silvano used. I don't know.
Took care of himself.
Yeah.
Then there's exterior influences, if you will.
Well, yeah.
This is what I say. That's my list.
Right? That's it. Ted, I love it. I love the fact
great.
that you even
great.
Yeah, that you even considered me being on here to talk about this. And I sure hope that we go back and revisit this in the years coming ahead to see exactly where Lemmy's going to end up. What Sage Kinsey going to do?
Where's he going to end up?
Right.
That some bitch can ride. He can ride, that guy.
Woo.
Yeah.
I way underestimated that man's talent. And I went on the record saying it. How I am. It is what it is. I was wrong about how great that guy was. 10 years ago, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think I got one more look at it. Sorry.
Oh no.
Okay, so I got Tough Donnie, but then I got Silvano up there, but he won the titles. Adriano JB, Sage, Jim Sharp, Shivers McBride, Jim Shoulders, Jose JW. That looks a little closer, but I don't know. How do you rank Tough Hedeman's 3 world titles based on the points, making them worth 600 points and Donnie's 8 worth 800? This is where it doesn't check out to me. That's why I'm so confused by this one. It's so hard.
It is. It's hard. There's just so many things to quantify that.
Right? It's impossible. The question is
impossible. Tough winning in both genres.
Yeah, only guy to ever do it.
Well, I'm glad we did come up with the fact that Jim Sharp's probably the greatest bull rider of all time, but whatever. I mean, I'm joking.
I don't know.
Hard to disagree. My gosh.
Yeah, good stuff. Good
Still
stuff,
putting Jim
Teddy.
tops. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Flint says Jim's first. Flint says Jim's first. And
put the list back up there.
What?
One more time. Just to hack,
Logan's over here going, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, it was good. It was a fun conversation. I appreciate you guys making it work, taking the time. It's fun.
Congrats, Ted. Congrats.
Hey,
150 episodes.
Oh,
good
yeah,
job.
yeah. Forgot
You've
about
done
that
well.
part.
I don't,
Hey, thanks for letting us do that.
I should say on here, because Clint, when Ted was starting this podcast, Ted, you were ahead of the podcast game a little bit. Now everybody's got a podcast and you were ahead of it. You know, you'd come on my radio show up at Calgary and talk about it. And I don't know if you remember what my advice to you was, but you said, what do you think? And I said, you got to change the name of it because you can't advertise it. You can't be in a newspaper. You can't Cowboy Shit. You're swearing in the name of your deal. So what you guys did was you did this, which allows you, what you've done is capitalize where you're making your money is merch.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so you took a podcast, turned it into merchandise, sort of like a Dale Brisby did. So you've done well. You didn't change the name, and I'm wearing a Cowboy Shit t-shirt. So there you go.
It's
There you
censored.
Yeah,
It's censored.
that's right. That's right.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys doing this. Sorry we didn't really
Jim
answer
Sharp.
the question. I think we kind of
Jim Sharp.
answered it.
Jim
Thanks,
Sharp.
buddy.
Okay. Yeah, and if that's what those guys say, but those guys have McBride first, like on the PBR list, they all have McBride first. So, but I based on the data, I just can't put them number one because
Well, but that's the PBR list is PBR though.
Yeah.
true. Yeah, they
PBR.
don't have Donnie on the list at all.
No, because he was never in the PBR.
Agreed. Yeah.
And Jim Sharp never won a world title. So yeah, that was their list of greatest PBR bull riders.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for doing this,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, I remember what you told me, said drinking was unholy. So Lord, can you point me to the creek? And I still keep it with me, tucked under all the memories. Your voice echoing throughout those trees. And through unfavored weather and holes in the leather, these boots still covered in tar. Well, I'm still praying to the heavens and hoping for them sevens, but hope only gets a man so far. When this game of life plays heavy on my heart, and love is tough, but loneliness is twice as hard. And I'll carry that about everywhere I go. And they say pressure makes diamonds. How the hell am I still cold?
Well, after all that, I don't know any more than I did before. And I still don't know who the greatest of all time is.
Dale Brisby.
Fuck. Man, so
Who's your personal favorite? Just if someone said, Ted, who's your, not the best, but who's your favorite bull rider of all time?
oh man. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, so we've done these lists different times. Like we did the best steer wrestlers, saddle bronc riders, barrel racers, bull riders, all from Canada. And I had this point system that we put together. And for those of you that have listened to some of the shows, you've probably, listen to one of those and had your opinions on it or not. But I kind of previously felt like we definitively answered the question pretty easily.
That's out the window now.
Oh, fuck. I just, this one is so, I don't know what the hell to do because there's so many different factors. And essentially what I realized that we maybe have created now, the list making the people the greatest of all time based on their accomplishments might kind of mean that they're the most accomplished. I think Storm and I were talking the other night, and she's like, yeah, maybe you're making a list of the most accomplished. Maybe it was Brett Gardner. I forget who it was. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
And it's like, if that's your criteria, it's accomplishments, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. Because there's hockey players who have won 4 Stanley Cups, and you probably don't know their name.
Yeah, they're not.
They were the
Patty
fourth
Maroon's
liners.
not one of the best hockey players.
No,
of all
but he's
time.
been on a lot of cup-winning teams, right?
Yeah. So does that make him the best ever?
You know,
Probably not.
so it's interesting for sure. You know, you look at that list, and at the end of it, it may not be who you think it is, and the person beside you could have a completely different list.
Okay, you know who I think it honestly is though, and should be, and I thought this a while back about a previous guy, but I honestly think it should be a guy like Jose Vitor Leme. I think that for that guy to be 98 points, and like if I look at the stats and see, you know, his average score being 88 points, his highest score at 98.3 3/4, his riding percentage 62%. Technically, based on those stats, he would be the best bull rider ever.
Yeah.
But he's only halfway through his career. If you look at a guy like Silvano or Adriano or JB or Sage Kimsey, like all these guys, they're already way further along. He's still early on. So I think Jose should and will be the greatest ever. I can agree with Flint and Clinton with them saying Jim Sharp. Like, just based on what I can find, I've got Jim at, like, the best I could do for him here, I think, was number 7.
Yeah.
And I messed with these numbers like so many different times. I think Tuff Hedeman is up there, top 5. But Jim, just based on the stats we have, like, we have 350 outs on it. And I know it's just his PBR outs, but like, if you're the greatest of all time, even if that's the snippet of the career that we have, like, I don't know. I just have a hard time buying it.
I just seen
when
a
Donnie
post.
Gay won 7 times, won the world 7 times.
I seen a post
8 times, sorry.
right after you recorded, and I think it was maybe like Cody Custer. Someone shared it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it said something about Jim Sharp being the greatest bull rider of all time.
Yeah. Well, because the PBR made a list and Jim was number 2.
Yeah.
Number 1, they had just McBride.
Right.
And McBride, based on this, I have him down like number 9 essentially. But I have Leme on this point system as like 11. And this one isn't quite right because I tried to weight the numbers differently and everything, and like it just doesn't. I'm not happy with how the list is. Like, even after all of this, I still don't have it proper.
Do you think Adriano would be higher if he didn't come in as like the first Brazilian to have to fight through the judges at the PBR level? Because you hear that talked about how he didn't have the easiest path.
Well, we kind of talked about that a little bit, and the feeling was no with.
That's interesting.
With because, and then if you go to 2, like the bull power now, I think is, you know, could you say 10 times harder than it was? Well, like should the world championship now be worth 1,000 points instead of Donnie? Like, it still took me bull riding, but how much different is it now?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I've been a fan of bull riding and watching
hard?
That bull riding that I can remember for 25 years now that I can, you know, remember.
Mm-hmm.
And the best bull rides that I can ever remember seeing have been in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's not saying, you know, it gets, you know, it's top of mind. No, Leme's bull rides in the last couple of years and a couple of JBs have been the best bull rides I've ever seen.
And
the scores reflected against the rankest bulls you've ever seen.
Justin McBride, Chris Shivers at the time rode the rankest ones.
Yeah.
But like, so that was the difference between JB and Silvano. One thing we never really got to in the show, but we should have got to, was that Silvano, you know, looking at the stats here, I can't justify Silvano being the greatest ever because his average score is only 84 points. So if he's a great bull rider, his average score every time should be as high as possible.
Yeah.
His highest score ever was 92.5, which is the lowest one on this entire list.
Yeah.
His career riding percentage is 46.96.
So he stayed on half his bulls and his average
Less
score.
than half.
Yeah, less than half.
He's 20% lower than the number 1 guy on the list. Rides 20% less bulls. And I know we only have 63 records on hand for Tuff Hedeman, but these are all at the top level at the PBR, the NFR, and he rode 66%.
So how many times would other guys in this list
beat him?
Take a re-ride?
Well,
and these guys would keep scores.
The re-ride thing is almost irrelevant.
Is it? Okay.
My point with Silvano, if you're going to say who's the best ever between Silvano if you're comparing in this whole list, Silvano versus Donnie gave
Donnie's
wins.
better.
Silvano versus Tough. Like,
Tough wins.
Silvano's probably last on this list because he didn't have the biggest moments, and he never took the rankest bulls to be 100 points like JB did. JB and Sage and Jim Sharp, probably Chris Shivers, Justin McBride, Jose, Donnie Gay, Tough Hedeman, like these guys all rode the rankest bulls at the time.
Yeah.
Where Silvano never really, he rode Asteroid, but he cut it, pulled his rope into him. And like, no offense, Silvano, he's a 3-time world champ.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Taking nothing away from the guy.
But you're right. JB would pick the rankest bull in the pen every night,
and he had the most highlights. And he rode the toughest bulls. And if you look at his average, I think he's up over 86. Yeah, 86.5. So 2.5 points higher, and his riding percentage is 5% higher. So, and his highest score 95 and 0.25. But he probably had 30 scores higher than Silvano's, making me think like, yeah, if you're gonna match them 10 bulls together, Silvano might ride. Well, no, based on the stats, JB's probably gonna ride more and be scored higher.
Well, that's how Silvano beat him that year for one of those world titles.
Yeah,
Beat JB, right?
but by more rides. But that was the way the system was set up to how they were making their world champion.
Yeah.
At the time was based on that system. He was playing by the rules, same way Donnie did. Donnie went to 150 rodeos, maybe flying his plane around, going to them all to win the world.
More than guys, yeah.
So, and he could afford to do it. So,
yeah.
So, if we're doing it by accomplishments, right? Like it makes it tough. So
these are
definitively
very accomplished bull riders.
Yeah,
all of them on there.
Yeah,
where they fall on the list in order of whatever is of who he thinks the best is tough. But I think that stuff like this is so great for conversation.
Oh, 100%.
Because you could sit around with generations of bull riders and have this argument, and it's going to be like figuring out.
Oh yeah,
but what eternity means. It's like you're never going to figure it out.
I think that I have a tough time, and I know Justin McBride was one of the greatest ever, 100%. I have a hard time putting Justin down as the greatest ever when he didn't have a full career. He quit early. He quit in his prime. How many more times could he have won the world?
Yeah.
That's my one holdup with McBride. That's the only knock I got on that guy.
Yeah.
He has as many outs now as Lemme has, which is kind of crazy. 661. Lemme has 571.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's like half a season essentially, based on the numbers right now. So if they have McBride first, then they technically could have Lemme first on the PBR list
based on number of outs.
Yeah, based on like the length of a career and like hypothetically. So, and I never saw Jim Sharp ride, but I saw videos of him, and for me, I still don't see that muscly riding position outmatching a guy like Jose or McBride or Shivers, even honestly. Kimsey, Mooney, like Kimsey rides so technically perfect.
He's got to be the best technical bull rider.
Probably, right? Like there could be a few different things a guy does here, to like make this list. But I think this top 12 list is pretty damn close on who should be on it. But a matter of order, like that's going to be a little more work.
That's for the listeners when you're done listening to this.
Yeah. How would you do it?
Submit what you think your picks would be and sit around with your buddies at a rodeo and see what you come up with.
And let's collectively figure out a ranking system that we can make it a little objective.
We may be at episode 300 before we figure
this out. Yeah, but it was a hell of a conversation. I appreciate Flint and Clint taking the time last week. Sometime I don't even know what day it was.
It was like it was bright and early, man.
Yeah, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. It was coffee time with those guys. Yeah. So yeah, enjoyed the shit out of it. Hell of a visit. I think we got our top 12 list down. But don't know the order. But I'll work on it some more. Folks, you work on it a little bit too.
And come episode 300, we promise we
might figure it out in another 5.5 years.
We will make the announcement who the greatest bull rider of all time is.
Yeah. Okay, Dustin. Have a good weekend out there.
Yeah, you too.
Once again, this is Cowboy Sh. My name's Ted Stovin. He's Dustin Edwards. And we're headed to Dallas in the morning. Check out the new stuff.
Texas.
Send me a note. Yeah, I gotta go to bed. Thanks for listening.
Good night, all.
Well, I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away. drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the